our fraternity crying out of course, this fallen soldier, as many would commemorate him. A story captured on page 10 and 11. And rush to install Koome. Well, a day after receiving her nomination by the Judicial Service Commission, President Kenyatta has asked the National Assembly to make sure that they vet Martha Koome for the position of Chief Justice. And now the Speaker wants MPs to speed up the process, even though the law allows for 28 days. A story captured on page 5 and 6. So much is going to play out in regards to this. We'll be following up closely just to get to know what plays out. And even as we talk of a deputy who is equally a female, and we look into the constitutional openings as to what really should conform this particular office and across the judicial system. And so in numbers, of course, 4.25 nomination time on Tuesday afternoon when JSC Vice Chair Olive Mugenda made that particular announcement. And on the aspect of the timelines, they have 28 days, number of days within which vetting, approval or rejection should be done. And so we'll be looking at this, following up on the same, just to keep you up to tabs. If she sails through, then she becomes the first female Chief Justice that we have heard in the country. And members of Parliament in heated debate on the BBI bill, stifling dissent. Proponents of a referendum yesterday blocked committee leaders deemed hostile to the initiative from opening debate on the Constitution of Kenya, that is Amendment Bill 2020, preferring House leaders loyal to President Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. Story captured on page 4. Remember, most of these leaders have pushed for the same, and therefore their proponents, or therefore their foot soldiers, also have been called upon to make sure that they have this bill sailed through, or they give it that clean bill of health, and we see whether we go for a referendum. On matters devolution, counties lose about 40 billion. Governors will have to wait much longer for the passing of a new law that will facilitate disbursement of the withheld funds after members of Parliament amended Division of Revenue Bill, that is yesterday, again in compliance with High Court ruling. A story captured on page 8. Lots of controversy arising and will arise, of course, in regards to this. We'll be having our political affairs reporter Elizabeth Mutuku following up on this, just to give you updates, especially also on the reactions that will play out. 6,000 list on first day as hitches hit land system, and up to about 6,000 Kenyans yesterday registered on the new online land management portal that is, of course, within Nairobi, even as lawmakers and land experts faulted the system hitches that delayed transaction and frustrated users. And of course, being its first day of use after Tuesday's launch by President Kenyatta, the digital system known as Aarthi Sasa was yesterday marked by delays in registration of transaction accounts, which is the first step of using this aspect, or this led to difficulties in accessing land transaction services. Conveyance lawyers told, of course, the papers, and we'll be looking at all that. We seek to see, or we are excited to see how this one works and whether it will come in handy to address the problems that we've had within the land setup most of the times. That aspect of corruption and people, stealing land, people, not being awarded, the right documents for their own land, and so much more. On matters health, Kenya hopes to get a U.S. AstraZeneca vaccine in donation, as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said a decision is yet to be made on which countries would benefit from the 60 million doses. A story captured on page 7. Remember, we are at that point where we are dire, or we seek to get the second dose for the individuals who are able to get the first jab, and most of them expected to get the same within a span of 6 weeks. But as the government has said, there are some adjustments that have been made because the World Health Organization argues that it is more effective to have the second jab 12 weeks after getting the very first one. Well, many arguing that probably this could be reasons why, this could be just reasons that the government seek, so that at least they can justify the delay on getting AstraZeneca, because AstraZeneca was coming from India, and as you have seen from the reports that we've heard, India's state of COVID-19 is extremely dire, and therefore the country says they will not be exporting some of these doses out of the country until they are able to manage their troubles locally. Whether the people who got the first jab should not worry or should worry is actually something that will be determined by time. Kagwe bans India flights over COVID-19. Story captured on the front page of the People Daily. 834 people were tested positive from a sample size of 8,498 with a positivity rate of 9.8%, and 853,081 persons have been vaccinated countrywide so far. So Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, of course, yesterday during his visit in Mwatate Hospital, Taita Taveta, where he equally inspected the institution's COVID-19 preparedness and maintained that, well, the situation is dire in India and therefore there needs to be some level of regulations. So much on the world of health. We'll be following up closely, and not just on matters COVID-19, but on other issues. Also, that tribute as captured on page 3 of the fallen journalist. And still on the matters of BBI, the debate that kicked off to a stormy start, that is yesterday, upon that special sitting that was convened, and constitutionality of the bill dominated the debate at the National Assembly, while in the Senate, Raila ODM allies clashed over whether to amend document or not. That is a story captured on page 4, is what forms the basis of our conversation this morning alongside Kevin Osido. That is Fred Okango, Secretary General Third Way Alliance, and we'll also be having Gloria Oruoba, who's a youth policy analyst, and equally Kevin Osido, who's a governance expert. We expound some more on all this. That is later on. The debate is on, and we'll also be following up on the same to make sure that you are updated on the sessions today. Koome, this is my promise to Kenyans, and she says in her first statement that that is after she was nominated as CJ, and she comes out to assure Kenyans of her unwavering commitment to serve to the best of her abilities. Again, a question of wait and see, a story captured on page 7 extensively of the People Daily. And Senator John sitting after Linturi's arrest, all this played out yesterday. We'll be looking at that as we proceed with the broadcast. So much lined up for you, but that should be later. Let's look at what is happening on our roads this morning. Not much of traffic right here in Nairobi within the city. Where it is that we are, we look at the situation, and this is Mombasa Road. As always, you will find some bit of traffic along Mombasa Road. This is where it gets to connect with the southern bypass, and there you find some tenets of traffic, but it is moving. The southern bypass on this other end is all flowing pretty well, and not much of alarm in terms of, traffic. And so when you connect to Mombasa Road, you go all the way down to Capital Center is when you start experiencing some level of traffic that is equally moving so well. Going down to this point where you connect to the likes of Bunyala Road, that is after you pass Lusaka, and where you connect to Lusaka and Langata Road. Evidently, Lusaka Road not looking bad on this side, and same applies to Langata Road. Roadworks ongoing where it connects to Gotv Way, as you can see somewhere around there, but this does not cause traffic as evidently seen right there. And so when we come to this point where it connects to Bunyala Road, that is Mombasa Road, you find some tenets of traffic. Well, this, as you're trying to get yourself into the city, then eases up, or it is flowing, and get yourself into the city. Not much of traffic as you've seen there. From Langata Road on this end, which we say is clear, and picking Gotv Way and coming all the way to Ngong Road. Evidently Ngong Road does not look bad this morning. I don't know what happened, Okay, well, in a good way, because most of the times Ngong Road was terrible back then, but nowadays you rarely find traffic along Ngong Road, and so you can see such is equally the case this morning. And moving on to a different one altogether, that is a different road. We connect to these sides of Gitanga Road on this side. As you can tell, Gitanga Road is looking all rosy. Kikambala Road, all the way Tok, somewhere around Lavington and Kileleshwa, the roads are all looking clear this morning and no cause for alarm. And from Gitanga Road, you come to connect to the likes of Kingara Road, moving on to the likes of James Gishuru Road that connects to Waiyaki Way again. and the roads are not bad. This is Naivasha Road, and Naivasha Road is not looking all bad this morning, and therefore as you connect from this end, that is from James Gishuru is all good all the way down, as you can tell. And now you come up here where it connects to Waiyaki Way. You find some tenets of traffic, but it is moving. The ABC place, Waiyaki Way, is looking good. Roadworks as always. Looks like it's going to take some while before that construction is done, but good thing is that it does not cause much of traffic, and so there's not traffic around Waiyaki Way and to these other roads, evidently Muthaiga, somewhere around Muthaiga and Limuru Road, whilst Limuru Road is also looking rosy this morning. And along Muthaiga Road, you connect to the likes of Thika Road. Well, Thika Road is all beautiful this morning, at least on these bits of Pangani, where you always find traffic, and somewhere around Muthaiga there. Well, Thika Road is flowing pretty well, going all the way down to Garden City, and this is away and from away and to the city. Yes, it is looking all good. This is another road, that is the Committee Road, is also not bad this morning. Around Mirema, as you connect to the northern bypass, looking all rosy. And so the roads are as clear as that. Anything else that would play out, I'll be here to keep you up to tabs. Now, let's look at these stories compiled by my team. And police are yet to arrest a man from Ngaturutuko village. Is actually Ngarutuko village, that is in Baringo County, who threw his 5-month-old baby in raging fire, claiming that the baby was born out of wedlock. And according to the mother, his husband arrived home drunk, causing drama before committing the heinous act, as Andrine Kilemi tells us.
At the Baringo County Hospital, Anna Kibiego and her 5-month-old baby are nursing injuries. This is after the innocent baby was thrown on raging fire by his father, who claimed the baby was born out of wedlock.
Huyu mtoto anakujanga kuja kuangalia huyu mtoto. Akipendua hivi, kuangalia hivi. Masikio si ya kwetu. Huyu mtoto sio wangu, ni ya mtu. Kumwauliza mtu yupi sasa? Uniambie. Kaniambia hata kwa kwetu hakuna mtu mwenye ataishi kama si ya kwetu.
According to Anne, a husband, a head teacher at Katakon Primary School, arrived home extremely inebriated and began quarreling before committing the unspeakable act.
Mtoto nia yake kabisa. Juu alikuwa amesha inua mguu juu akitaka kumkanyanga wapi? Tumbo. Nikamwambia tafadhali, nikamwomba, kama ni chakula unataka, wacha nitoe sahani nikupe mboga. Wachana na mtu wangu. Hivyo kama unitaki, eri unipe msiko yangu yote nirudi kwetu na mtoto wangu mdogo. Hasa nikakimbia kufika nyumba, ndio hiyo sasa nikakuta mtoto ameweka uso kwa moto.
Confirming the incident, Baringo Children's Officer Irene Chepkwony said the incident had been reported to the police, who are now looking for the man who has been at large since Sunday.
Department of Children's Services, we call upon now the security personnel in charge of that area of jurisdiction to take tough measures by arresting the perpetrator and be brought to book.
The baby is currently receiving treatment at Baringo Referral Hospital, with calls for well-wishers to help in specialized treatments. Andrine Kilemi, TV 47.
Oh, that's pretty much unfortunate. And away from that to some bit of, matters happening in the corridors of justice. President Uhuru Kenyatta has submitted Chief Justice nominee's name, that is Martha Koome, to the National Assembly for vetting. Koome was nominated by the Judicial Service Commission unanimously after beating her 10 competitors in her rural home in Gotv village. That is where there were songs of allulations and dances as her family, neighbors and villagers celebrated her win, as Joash Onsari tells us.
Following her nomination as Kenya's next Chief Justice, Lady Justice Martha Koome, President Uhuru Kenyatta has submitted her name to the National Assembly for vetting.
Received a message from His Excellency the President conveying the nomination of the Honorable Lady Justice Martha Karambu Koome for appointment as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and President of the Supreme Court.
Koome says as she is prepared for her next assignment, if approved, conveying her gratitude to all who encouraged and prayed for her. Several women groups have congratulated her for her nomination.
Kwa sababu yeye ameweza kufika mahali pale, sisi tutapata justice. Tunajua kwamba within a lifespan of 1 year, zile cases ya GBV ambazo ziko kotini sitaweza kupunguzwa.
In her rural home in Kithiu village, Imenti North, Meru County, family members, neighbors and leaders were reading the news in the dailies after her nomination to head the judiciary.
Kiado, Yekowa, CJ, Lemada, Koome, Haki, Gotv.
Mother Koome's brother Mwenda Gutere says their father identified mother as a leader at a young age.
So alidetect hiyo leadership ya hiyo mtoto, hiyo msichana akiwa miaka kidogo sana. Mpaka akaacha kumuita Karambu akamuita Kanaitore. Kanaitore ni Kimeru means a great woman. Hata saa nyingine anakataa kukula chakula ikipigwa na mwingine anasema mpaka apigiwe na Kanaitore.
I am very happy because he has been selected as a CJ. She will change the judiciary. All I know is she doesn't like corruption and she doesn't like corrupt people.
Neighbors and leaders from Meru County who witnessed Martha Koome growing up could not hide their joy, terming her as hardworking and focused.
Huyo kukimbia kwa nikamfuata ikifika kwa gate yangu akaniambia Chief Justice. Nini Chief Justice? Mother. Almost collapsed. Nilifurahia karibu roho iwache kupiga. Nikaenda huko, nikakuta another neighbors come, tukascream, tukashukuru Mungu, tukasema Mungu ni mwema.
Today we are coming here to celebrate that historical moment. And I want to tell Kenyans confidently that Meru, as a Meru community, we are joining to support our daughters and sons.
The Judicial Service Commission on Tuesday finalized the process of evaluation of 10 candidates who had been shortlisted for the position of Chief Justice following the retirement of David Maraga in January this year. After conducting interviews for 2 weeks, JSC settled on Lady Justice Martha Koome, who, if approved, becomes the first female Chief Justice in the country.
After lengthy deliberations and careful consideration of the performance of the various candidates, the JSC has unanimously recommended the appointment of Honorable Lady Justice Koome Martha Karabu, Judge of the Court of Appeal, as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, and has submitted her name to His Excellency the President for appointment.
On Wednesday last week, Koome appeared before the JSC. One of the things that stood out during her interview was her sentiments towards marriage and properties.
If I got married today, I have my property. My spouse will not be entitled to my property. The property I had before marriage, that's my property. And vice versa.
Joash Onsare, TV 47.
Well, so much joy right there. Now, away from it, Kenya has suspended all passenger flights in and out of India for a period of 14 days, subject to review. This is according to Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, who says the new directive that will take effect after 72 hours followed the dire state of COVID-19 infections in the country, as Zainab Mohammed tells us.
Following a surge in COVID-19 cases in India, Kenya has suspended all passenger flights into and out of the country for a period of 14 days. According to Health CS Mutahi Kagwe, the new directive will take effect after 72 hours, leaving a short window for those who needed to travel in and out of the country.
This announcement, and that is therefore take effect on midnight on Saturday. This would allow those who are traveling tomorrow from India, those patients who are coming to arrive in the country.
The ministry further says all those who enter into the country during the 72-hour window will be subjected to a rapid antigen testing upon arrival and a further 14-day mandatory quarantine at their own cost. Cargo flights shall, however, not be affected.
All passengers arriving from India within those 72 hours shall be subjected to rapid antigen testing upon arrival at our ports of entry and shall be required to strictly observe a 14-day quarantine period that will be closely monitored by our health officials.
India has been recording a new record high worldwide over the past couple of days as its death toll now surpasses over 200,000, making it the fourth country to reach that high. Meanwhile, Kenya has today recorded a total of 834 new COVID-19 cases, 579 recoveries, and 23 new deaths. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Thank you, Zain, for that. Now, to more on health. People living with HIV and AIDS virus in Butere, Kakamega County have complained of stigma and mistreatment from health officers at the Butere County Hospital as they seek medical care. Meanwhile, the government says hurdles that were affecting the supply of ARVs have been resolved.
The trend of stigma and mistreatment of people living with HIV/AIDS continues to place them at an awkward situation, even as the ARV supply shortage due to the standoff on a consignment of the drugs poses more health threat to them. The latest case was reported at the Butere Hospital in Kakamega County. Affected people have said that they have been barred from accessing the ARVs that are available and are facing mistreatment and abuses from the health officers at the hospital.
Dawa yangu nachukua Butere, lakini ninapoenda hapo ushauri wa hawa madaktari wenye wako kwa sasa si mzuri kwangu. Hata sijui nikienda hapo nagombanishwa kama mtoto, naambiwa simezi dawa vizuri, kama simezi vizuri. Sasa mimi mwenyewe ninashangaa kutoka hiyo mwenyewe nilikuwa nimekubali niko na HIV. Sasa nifike mahali nianze kucheza na dawa.
Some of the affected people have developed cold feet to go to the Butere County Hospital for fear of being mistreated. Verbal assault from the health officers have subjected victims to self-hate, leading some committing suicide.
Na hata ninavyoona tutakuwa na deaths, suicidal cases zitakuwa mingi kwa sababu ya reception yenye iko Butere kwa hospitali.
Meanwhile, the government has said that there are enough ARVs in Kenya, despite early reports that public hospitals were facing shortage, leading to protests from people living with HIV/AIDS. Health CS Mutahi Kagwe says that issues of taxation for the supply of ARVs by USAID have been resolved.
I did explain to Parliament last week that we have ARVs in the country and we are rolling them out as was witnessed by yourselves. But we also have the ARVs that are the port that were donated by the United States Aid Agency, and we have discussed with them the way out, because originally, as you will remember, we had an issue of taxation because of the introduction of a private sector by the US Aid Administration that we were not aware of.
The government has further explained that the change of the kind of ARVs to be used has caused the delay in supply of the ARVs to the hospitals. Lekishon Laban, TV47.
Now, the selection panel for the recruitment of IEBC commissioners has been officially sworn in. The panel says it will be done with the recruitment exercise by June this year.
The 7 members of the selection panel for the recruitment of the IEBC commissioners will have been officially sworn in to undertake the mandate.
I, Gideon Solonka, having been appointed member of the selection panel for nominees for appointment as members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, do swear that I will at all times obey, respect, and uphold the Constitution of Kenya and all other laws of the Republic, that I will faithfully and fully, impartially, and to the best of my ability, discharge the trust, and perform the functions and exercise the powers devolving upon me.
The panel appointed by President Kenyatta has already rolled out its schedule to fill the 4 IEBC vacant positions. By Saturday this week, the positions will be advertised on the Public Commission's website and 2 other local dairies. 14 days later, the panel will receive the applications from the date of advertisement. Thereafter, it will shortlist candidates and publish the names all on before the 24th of May. The panel will then receive public views on the shortlisted candidates for a period of 7 days before conducting the interviews between the 31st of May and 4th of June, depending on the number of the applications received.
In the appointment of commissioners to the IEBC to play their respective roles expeditiously. The selection panel recognizes and appreciates the trust that has been bestowed on it and wishes to assure the people of Kenya that it will perform its functions with strict adherence to the Constitution and the law and shall remain faithful to the oath of office that it took today. The panel also undertakes that it will keep the public duly informed of the progress of this important assignment through press statements.
Remember that while you can cheat everybody, there are 2 people you will not be able to cheat. And the first one is actually yourself. So if you go there and pick people on grounds other than their competence, we shall be watching. The other person you cannot cheat is God. And so, if you are not accountable to yourself on the last day, you will account to your Maker. And so, as I wish you well and congratulate you, I must remind you that the task you're just about to embark on is not a small task. And if the people you bring to us cause us problems in August next year, we shall go back to the beginning.
The qualified candidates will then be forwarded to the president for appointment.
Former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary and TSP party leader Mwangi Kiunjuri has announced to lead a no campaign in the event that Parliament scraps off the provision of 70 constituencies in the BBI report. Kiunjuri says the ploy to scrap off the constituencies is aimed at denying Mount Kenya region their fair share of constituencies to the advantage of other regions.
Sima kwanza tukae chini kama nyumba ili viongozi baribari kama ni kiongozi kama Munya, kiongozi kama Kidiki, kiongozi kama Martha Karua, viongozi wale wengine wote tukubaliane kwanza, hata kama ni Murathe na wengine tuketi chini. Kwanza tuzungumze yale ambaye yanatuhusu kama nyumba. Na ambaye yale tukizungumza hiyo ndio itakuwa ndio manyo yetu. Kwamba kila mahali tunaenda, kila mtu atavutie nyumba kulingana na yale tumesikilizana. Kama haya ataondolewa, the issue of one man, one vote, one sharing inaondolewa. I can assure you I will lead no campaign. Hiyo wakiondoa, I will be one of the person to lead no campaign. Lakini kama kuna one man, one vote, one sharing, tutanyamaza. Lakini tunaweza sukumwa tutokee. Kwa hivyo hapa hakuna kupembelezana. Hata kama tutabaki peke yetu tukisema no, as long as the interests of Mount Kenya region are not taken care of, it will be a no vote.
Well, and still on BBI, the bicameral parliament has started debating the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. A heated debate was witnessed in both special sittings for the better part of yesterday. A section of members of parliament, however, decried of intimidations by some powerful government officials after Mary Senator Mithika Linturi was arrested, as Elizabeth Mutuku tells us.
Minutes after senators convened Wednesday afternoon for a special sitting to debate the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, a heated debate ensued amid reports of Meru Senator Mithika Linturi had just been arrested. According to a section of senators, Linturi's absence was a political gimmick in an attempt to bring order to the House. Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka was forced to adjourn the sitting for...
So, Mr. Speaker, you are the leader of this House. And we are urging you, Mr. Speaker, to take this matter seriously. And for me, as a person, I'm declaring that if that is not explained, then I will boycott. I will not participate in the sessions that we are going to have this afternoon.
It's wrong. And it doesn't matter what he believes in, because this chamber is supposed to be a chamber of debate. Yes. This is not a choir where we are supposed to agree or sing the same song.
The arrest has nothing to do with the proceedings before the House. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this because I've been a victim. I've been a victim. And if these rules were not complied with, many members would have been arrested from even the belly of the chamber. If we let it continue, one of these days, policemen are going to come into the chamber, not just to arrest Linturi, to arrest the Speaker.
The same issue raising a heated debate in the National Assembly, with members allied to Deputy President William Ruto saying they won't be intimidated to change their stand on the BBI report.
It is a parliamentary initiative. That is when the 90 days publication period applies. It does not apply to a popular initiative.
Yeah, Your Honorable Speaker, that is why I was seeking your guidance, because I know you are very intelligent, you are well informed, you are a mobile encyclopedia when it comes to the Constitution. Well, shut up, Honorable Body. That purports, Mr. Speaker, to even expand, Mr. Speaker, democracy and the voices of all, when members of this parliament are intimidated on how to debate this report, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I seek your indulgence that we suspend this sitting, Mr. Speaker, until we know the welfare of one of us.
The House leadership urging members to consider the bill as it will be beneficial to the country. Section of members of parliament are pushing for amendments in the bill. Despite of the differences in the bicameral parliament over the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, members debated the bill soberly.
On the issue of popular initiative, I would seek your guidance that if during public participation, people give different views, say during the period that they've gone around, the promoters have gone around seeking views, and we have 100 different views in regard to this, Mr. Speaker. Do we then take all their views?
Honorable Speaker, I want you to guide on the following. A, what is the value of public participation that was conducted by the joint committees of Parliament? 2, should the submission of the public be thrown in a file cabinet and be put away to gather dust, or should they have any meaningful use or purpose?
Mr. Speaker, I know you are a man of wisdom. I know you are a good lawyer, and you will give a very good, Mr. Speaker. I don't want my bill to be mutilated in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I belabored, Mr. Speaker, as a promoter, to collect 4 million signatures. None of these members, Mr. Speaker, can collect 4 million signatures, Mr. Speaker. I went around the country, Mr. Speaker, to get 4 million signatures, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
The BBI roadmap seems on course but under strained timelines. Already, some of the clauses having impact on the 2022 polls. For some, it's a do or die for the bill to sail through or not. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV 47 Nairobi.
Conversation this morning alongside other issues that we'll be touching on, and joining me for the same is Gloria Oruba, who's a youth policy analyst, and Fred Okango, Secretary General Third Way Alliance, and Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. We'll be having this conversation. I termed it necessary not to have the members of parliament themselves because, well, sometimes it can get emotive. I had them yesterday, member of the Senate too. I mean, wished to know what it is that would play out. Nothing that they told me really played out yesterday. We're looking forward to today, and I'd love to hear what the expectations of the lady and gentleman on set are for today's session. Fred.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda, for inviting me.
Thank you.
I think we are at a very good time. I'm actually very impressed by the conduct of Kenyans so far in terms of keeping the COVID protocols. Kenyans have done well, and I can see the graph is starting to go down, or rather the positivity rate. But having said that, there's a task ahead of Kenyans and ahead of the Member of Parliament. The bill is finally before the bicameral house, and not just before them. It has, the report of the jailer committee has been tabled for a debate, and remember this is going through the second reading. They have no other opportunity for a third reading. They have only one opportunity in the second reading to make a decision in accordance with Article 257, whether to approve as is or reject as is. And notwithstanding any decision they make, then Kenyans again, as I started by congratulating them, they will make the final approval in the referendum. Now, Linda, the members of parliament yesterday, you saw them a bit excited.
Yeah.
Those who have been struggling with the excitement of amending this bill, I think they have just realized today, or rather yesterday, that this bill, you cannot amend it. Not for the minor errors that we have seen in the bill. But in form, you can. In substance, you cannot. I also want to congratulate the JLAC committee, the both houses, for coming up with a report. And in their report, they outlined areas that in their own view, they thought that those are areas that they must bring to light.
Right.
They have outlined the areas that, you know, were inconsistent in terms of text, not in terms of substance. And also they sought the guidance of the experts. But what is important, Linda, is what is this bill? This bill is a popular initiative bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. It is from the people of Kenya. And the propositions therein are propositions that were formulated into a bill from the people of Kenya. The only person that can make a decision, and the final one on this bill, is me, you, Atieno, Wanjiku, Mora, Njoroge, Onyango,
but Fred, the members of parliament are, seeking to probably get to understand whether they can make some, changes on this particular document. Then does not stop Wanjiku from equally having the final say, does it? No, let's allow Gloria come in. Gloria, does it?
I think at the point where we already collected the 1 million signatures, which Junet, you had, he was actively involved, and so therefore he understands the pain. The question is, this 1 million signatures that, Wanjiku and all these people that Okango is trying to mention, when they placed those signatures, they actually were saying that this draft bill that I have been subjected to, that I have read, that I have understood, this is actually what I'm passing. Now the question is, whether or not they want to make amendments, which they cannot, because this is a popular initiative. We have an issue here where there is allegations of 6 different drafts. The allegations also...
There are 6.
Yes, 6. The allegations also is that only 11 county assemblies actually had the original copy, the correct one, and they read it, and that's the one they passed.
And Senate and the National Assembly different.
Yesterday I had a legal expert tell us that, it's not a problem. If the Senate and the National Assembly had 2 different copies, then there's still time for them to be given the one who had the wrong copy, whether it's the Senate or the National Assembly, there's still time for them to get the right copy so they can read, debate it, whatever. So now I want to pose this question to the same legal experts. What about the county assemblies, I think it's, how many passed the BBI 40?
Almost
43. So if 43 county assemblies passed the BBI and only 11 had the original copy. So I want to pose this same question. So is there still time for the county assemblies that passed the fake one to be given the correct one? Because if you ask me, if only 11 of them passed the correct bill, then it means that this Building Bridges initiative, just like Punguza Mzigo and Okango is here to attest, did not meet the threshold of 24 county assemblies. In which case then, should we really be discussing it should we be having special sittings at the National Assembly and at the Senate? Because the process of a popular initiative is, whoever Even you can come up with a question. It is drafted as a sort of bill, a referendum bill. It goes to the public. We carry out public participation. You collect 1 million signatures. After the 1 million signatures, you go to IEBC. You deliver your 1 million signatures and your draft referendum bill. IEBC then spends time to do what? To verify it. After they verify and they see that these signatures indeed are authentic, from there, it moves, and IBC is supposed to now print the copies through what is it called? The government printers, and then distribute them to the National Assembly, the county assemblies, and the Senate. You understand?
Yes.
So which is the process they followed? So I want to ask, because you know, when these experts, legal experts, tell us that, you know, typos can be corrected by the Attorney General. If indeed there was a wrong draft that was taken to the Senate, let them get now now at this point where apparently the county assemblies have passed it, can we go back and tell them, hey, only 11 of you have passed it, and you other guys who did not even bother to read it because you were so blinded by the car grants, now you have to read the correct one, debate it.
All right, hold it right there.
You know?
Gloria speaks of 6 different copies, and you evidently said no, there were not 6, but at least from the reports that we're receiving, indeed there were different copies. And up until now, the question is, in as much as this is a game of numbers, it's equally a game of words. A game of words in the sense that, well, if we're speaking about different words within the document that was debated at the level of Senate and the National Assembly, that's a question mark. And a game of words again, if we're speaking about what it is that is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 257, speaking of what process a popular initiative should go through. Some members of Parliament, in their own special interpretation, arguing that there's nowhere in the Constitution that it is indicated that they cannot deliberate on this, and you cannot read this one in isolation. So then you have to look at other clauses and other articles within the Constitution, match up with this particular one, and, you know, substantiate the argument that probably members of Parliament should not proceed to make any changes within this particular document. I'd love to hear your view on the same. And when we speak of a scenario where the documents are different, what then is left of the common mwananchi, who Fred says is the ultimate decision maker on this one? They probably do not have an idea of what this bill is all about because they have not read anything. The government printer has not been generous enough to make sure that they print out copies for them.
I think one of the things that has been very profound and pronounced about the BPI process is that you have people who have been for this particular process and document, and those who have been very adamantly against it, and they have been loud about it. And the third group of people have been those who have been against it but very silently. So they are like in-betweens. Yeah. It would be very disturbing in my view to confuse the public. Remember, Article 1 of the Constitution says that sovereign power rests in the people of the Republic of Kenya. And this power can be exercised in 2 ways, either directly or indirectly. What the people of Kenya have done is to delegate this sovereignty to elected members who have been, you know, brought to us by IEBC, some of them probably vetted by EACC and other constitutional commissions, and ultimately we have told them, go and sit at 2 levels. One, the county assembly, and the National Assembly and Senate to represent us. Remember that before we got to the level of representation, the BBI process was initiated by 2 people. And these 2 people put together a committee. This committee went around the country. They submitted a report. As at the time, the first BBI report of 2019 was coming out, there were almost 4 different copies. That therefore takes us back to those who are for the document and those who are against it. And the same task force came out and said, this is the right copy that we have been going through going around the country with, and these are the views that Kenyans were able to, you know, present to the different committees in their various, to the task force in their different sittings all through the country. That trajectory, Linda, has not stopped even up to and until the time when we are talking about the BBI report. Now, the point of contention in my view is, what are we talking about? Is it the report or is it the amendment bill? Because what went to the assemblies was not the report. It was the amendment bill.
Yes.
Remember that IEBC has also come out and said that we are very categorical about what document we sent to the county assemblies, and they've been very consistent. Some of the members of the steering committee of the BBI process have also come out and seconded IEBC's narratives. What I think we must be able to guard the BBI process against is people who want to confuse the public.
Okay.
And I think that where this process has gotten to, as my good friend Okango says, ultimately it's the people who will have a final say. But where I began from is where I go back to the sovereignty of the people. The people who exercise this power on behalf of the people of Kenya, who are our elected representatives, should also be very honest, honorable, and stand out as leaders who will be able to make history as Kenya goes through its first amendment, because this is our first amendment of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. I don't think the people who have been given the mandate by Kenyans to represent them at these august houses want to be judged by history as people who stood out and confused Kenyans.
Okay.
And so even as we talk about this amendment process, our elected leaders, the people who now have the privilege and the opportunity to now have a debate and discussion around which report are we talking about, which amendment bill are we talking about, must stand tall and be judged positively by history. And in my view, stop confusing the public, because I think that is what we are going through as it is right now. There is no way
So standing in what it is that they would term as the truth, or, you know, and if we are to talk to the public, then probably they would argue that, you know what, it is only fair that the few who appeared before us to echo their sentiments, then we look into those sentiments. And if we are to look into those sentiments, we remember very well the people who appeared before the parliament, and, you know, a majority of them had, you know, in a way, issues that they had raised. And therefore, if they are to stand by what it is that the people speak of, then they would want to alter this document as it stands.
You see, the challenge, Linda, is that not everything in the BBI report will be subjected to a referendum.
Yes.
The Constitution...
We're talking about the Constitutional Amendment Bill.
Exactly.
Anyway, yes.
And so even if you are to look at what are the issues that we are talking about here, it is not possible that, that we can have a report which is churned out through very many different processes that my co-panelists have talked about, including the public participation processes, and then in all those processes, with having one midwife who is now the steering committee of BBI, and then handing it over to the two promoters, the brothers, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga and the president, birth out a baby that you cannot, you know, juxtapose with the father and the mother. Because I think that is the kind of confusion that we are having. And if we are going to continue to propel that narrative, then the challenge about having a possible referendum where the people of Kenya will have an ultimate say will continue to be a ping pong, you know, toast it this way, toast it that way. Because where we are at as a country is a momentous historic opportunity for us to exercise that sovereignty. And I think regardless of the fact that there are people who would want to propel certain narratives about the report, we want to see voices of sanity standing out to be able to demystify the negative narratives about this possible process that we have to amend our constitution. And I think that...
And to achieve that, then you mean we go to levels of intimidating members so that we get to achieve that? Hold it right there. We come to that conversation. It is captured on the front page of all the papers, and therefore is what we'll be looking at. But first, let's update the viewer on what is also happening in the world of news, because we're not only talking matters BBI, so much happening. Tributes pour in for fifth columnist. That is a story captured on the People Daily, and that one also on matters BBI captured on the front page. But on matters health, Kagwe bans India flights over COVID-19. That is front page of the People Daily, and front page of the Daily Nation. Speak of matters health, Kenya hopes to get U.S. AstraZeneca vaccine donation. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says decision is yet to be made on which countries would benefit from the 60 million doses, amid adjustments that would probably give some level of hope to the Kenyans, especially those ones who've already gotten the first jab. Fred, so far so good on how we're handling matters COVID-19 as we continue?
First of all, have you been vaccinated?
Yes.
Thank you.
But I'm worried of whether I'm going to get the second dose.
You have just read that there's a 60 million dose that is coming.
That is yet to be confirmed.
And we believe if the government
Have
is
you
serious,
been?
I have been.
All
I'm
right.
waiting for my second dose. And I believe if this government is serious, then that 60 million dose will come, and anyone who got the first jab will get the second, and anyone who has never gotten will get the first and the second. And I think sometimes back in one of the stations I said something, that Kenyans are very resilient. And I started by saying that. I think, first of all, the measures that the government is trying to put in place, they are trying. They are not what we would really want to see. But we must give credit where it is due. Even by the fact that we are now banning passenger, flight from India. And you see what is happening in India. India is the producer of AstraZeneca. And look at what is happening to them. Because they went for a festival, and they reactivated COVID. And today they are all suffering, unfortunate. But we believe that they'll come through. Now, in Kenya, Linda, we have seen the positivity rate now starting to go down. Not because of anything, but because Kenyans have obeyed the protocols that were put in place. We have seen Kenyans struggling to earn a living because they believe that they have to wake up in the morning as hard workers, go and get food for their children, get some money to pay whatever they have to pay. It has not been easy. So it is in the interest of this government, it is in the interest of the citizen, it is in our interest as political leaders that we see Kenyans get to the other side. And that is only possible if we work together. So in terms of management of the COVID-19 situation, in a scale of 0 to 10, I would give the government today 7. I believe the day that we have mass vaccination, where every person, every household is vaccinated, in the US, they have now surpassed over 200 million mark. Remember, the population is around 350 million, thereabouts. But they have surpassed half of the number of the population in terms of vaccination. I want to see our country also in the coming days where we shall be talking of over 40 million Kenyans having received vaccination. Not just one, but the first and the second. So I think with the news we are reading that there's 60 million doses coming, we are headed there. Headed there.
Okay, well, allow me to take a short break and then we come back to you, Gloria, so that you can equally weigh in on the same.
Up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee. Coffee, movie. Together, coffee with movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV 47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah.
Producers.
So now I manage because talent management and events management, I think, was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. Out here, let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you coffee with movie, interesting, enticing guests. Out here, tunaweza anza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is coffee with movie. Jua unaweza enda sasa.
Okay.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444 hash utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God Church under Reverend Fred Gitahi as a senior pastor. We are located at Bahati, Makadara area in Nairobi. We run a virtual church service with online services every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. as well as the children's services from 10 a.m., teens and youth services every Saturday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Nairobi Christian Center Bahati and on YouTube Nairobi Christian Center. Be blessed.
Candace, what's that?
I brought you a small bonus.
Bonus for what?
You got us 299 family dinners, 64 kisses on the cheek, 12 road trips to see grandma, 42 jokes from daddy, 49 laughs from mommy.
In over 60 years of dealing with numbers, we've learned that the numbers that matter the most to you are the ones that matter the most to us. NCBA Bank. Go for it.
At NCBA, we can tailor-make your SME business solution to suit your business. It's what we have done for over 50,000 businesses so far.
50,000? Mommy, that is 50,000 families with 50,000 meals every day and 50,000 dreams coming to life.
We know that it's not about the business, but about caring for loved ones. Get NCBA SME banking solutions. The name is NCBA, and the numbers that matter to you.
As the country gears
All right, here we are back with Gloria Roba, Youth Policy Analyst, Fred Okango, Secretary General, Third Way Alliance, and this heavy one, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, is quite a long. Not Kevin Osido, yes.
The boss.
That's actually should.
Kevin Osido is enough. Hizo
zingine tuache, yeah? All right, well, yeah. Manze, well, you are representing the governor. Wacha tu tuseme, wacha afanye kazi wherever he is.
Thank you.
Here we are back with the papers, and yes, Gloria to you.
I think we were talking about COVID-19 and
Yes.
if our government has actually handled it well. I would say, based on the capabilities and the goodwill that the government has had, I think they've handled it to the best of their capability. You know what's a bit sad to the common Kenyans as private citizens is that we could quickly hold a special sitting for a referendum bill, and yet we still haven't called in, for instance, the Kenya COVID-19 Fund Committee to actually ask them what happened to the 220 billion that we got earlier on last year. So if you ask me, the special sitting that I was expecting to see is for the National Assembly and the Senate to say we are actually almost at a near state of emergency. We have a pandemic. We have issues getting enough vaccines. We have issues with other things, you know, the domino effect of having to, you know, shut down the country. We have issues around curfew. We have issues around what I refer to as the social experiment that we have right now. And the special sitting that I was hoping we would see, because special sittings are for matters that can't wait until we go back, you know, to the normal calendar. The special sitting that I was hoping to see is the members of parliament or the senators actually sitting down and discussing where are we with life after COVID-19? Where are we with vaccines? Where are we with this curfew? Does it make sense? Where are we with these allegations? Because Kenyans are actually thinking this whole curfew process and shutting down, you know, roads and, you know, arresting people. And Kenyans are actually thinking this is a social experiment because there's still no science that shows us that COVID-19 can only spread between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. You know, there's still no science that shows us that the curfew is actually why the numbers are going down. And yes, these numbers that are going down, like we had the numbers at the very beginning when we were really hoping to get all these grants and funds and whatever. You remember, immediately in like a week, 2 weeks, those numbers miraculously just skyrocketed. In fact, that's the reason why a lot of Kenyans were like, do you know anyone who knows anyone? Because they were not believing in the numbers that were being churned out by by Ministry of Health. So for me, even if you're telling us that the numbers are going down, can you credit why are the numbers going down?
Right.
I believe, if at all those numbers are going down genuinely, I believe it's because of the culture that Kenyans have actually had to adjust to.
Okay.
We are now believing that we need to wear masks. We are now believing that social distancing actually does work. But show me a science or the numbers basically saying numbers have gone down because matatus have been, barred from carrying I don't know how many, and still our aeroplanes are still, carrying the same number of passengers. So I think there's a lazy approach on how we are handling this COVID-19 as a government. You know what it is, Linda? We've actually, Mungu ametusaidia. God has been very faithful to this country.
All right, let's look.
And that is what I credit these numbers or whatever, because when I look at what government has done against how far we have come, nitasema tu, God is good.
Government can do better. That is one thing that we could acknowledge, in unison. In unison, I'm told, or unanimously, is the word of the day or the name of the game as it is right now. But then, do you suppose Gloria is speaking to indeed the interest of the people, or for the interest of the people as expected, or as what it is that could be felt on ground in terms of priorities? And many Kenyans have come out to say that what, we have our priorities misplaced. We know very well that probably she could not be for the BBI processes as it is, but reality is that sometimes they are looked at as people who are just hitting on everything that the government is doing, and raising unnecessary concerns. But don't you think she has a valid point?
Linda, there's never a right or wrong time to amend a constitution. And in fact, if you look at particular issues in our articles, the articles that speak to amendment 256, 257, very clearly stipulated concerns that can be taken to a referendum. And even today, if Kenyans have a feeling that the president is not responsive enough insofar as how he is performing in terms of responding to citizen priorities and how his government is really, responding to people's interests, you can impeach the president, and impeachment is really a people's is a referendum question, because it speaks to the structure of government. So anybody can actually initiate that, and so that is a word to the people who are more or less trying to imagine that we would have probably done better spending more time talking about COVID and more resources talking about COVID other than, constitution amendment. I think for me, a first amendment to a constitution is a test to how far we have been able to amend implement our constitution, how far we have been able to navigate the hiatus, the gaps, that we have experienced even as we live this constitution since it was promulgated in August 2010.
Yeah.
Now, whether government is speaking to people's priorities is a big issue, and I think for me I agree with Gloria in the sense that as a citizen, what is my contribution in shrinking the pool of rather in flattening the curve of COVID-19? What is my responsibility? Am I ensuring that I am sanitizing, I am washing my hands and with soap for at least 30 seconds, if that is what it means? Am I physically distancing, what we call social distancing? Am I doing my patriotic duty in partnership, what you call unanimous or in unison, in partnership with government, so that it is a state and individual partnership and collaboration and cooperation?
Yeah.
On the flip side is government doing what the citizen expects, so that, for example, as we talk about a partnership or an engagement with the US, for example, sharing their vaccines with countries like Kenya, what has the government done? Because if you move further to look at the economics of COVID-19 against Kenya and the US, for example, has stimulus packages to its business community, its employees, and it's working in close collaboration with employers, to caution its people. Here in Kenya, the first time when we had the first COVID-19 cases, the government came up so strongly even to give us stimulus packages. Today, we do not know whether those resources are there. People are talking about taxation, value-added tax. There is no proper packages to be able to cushion Kenyans, even and including, rather up to and including the businesses.
Right.
So when you talk about economies of scale against COVID-19 flattening of the curve, I think the government needs to really pull its socks. I think from the counties, the county governments have been able to be very responsive to their citizens. So we have seen, for example, some counties giving cushions to taxation, the rates that the businesses, the rates and the taxes and the levies that businesses give to counties. Some of those have been laid off. You look at, for example, issues to do with water and sanitation. Some counties have actually ensured that you have water boozers moving into people's communities to ensure that water is actually available. But I think by and large is to look at how the government has been able to make life much more easier, because today in Kenya we are still talking about double prices to very basic commodities that families need, like flour. We are talking about unga ya ugali on the tables. We have families going without food. I don't think it is fair. We have young people losing jobs. We have companies closing, and yet government is silent. And sometimes it's even disturbing because we keep talking about pre-existing conditions, Linda. And today in your morning press, I was looking at you and agonizing over our friends, relatives, and family members who are living with HIV/AIDS. And you look at the opportunistic infections that then COVID-19 would take advantage over. And government is still talking about fake vaccines and licenses that have not been given. I think the government needs to begin to be very serious, especially when it comes to working together with citizens to be flattening the curve of COVID-19. We cannot continue to compare ourselves with first world countries like the US. In fact, this article on The Nation on 7 says Kenya may, and I have underlined it, because it's not that it's a guarantee that when the Secretary of State speaks with our president on Zoom, it's not a guarantee that they are going to send us vaccines. Our government must begin to push people to work. For instance, Gotv, the Association of Vaccines, what are they doing insofar as having our own Kenyan model vaccine? Africa Union is today talking about an African vaccine. Is it possible that as a country we can be part and parcel of those kind of conversations? Because that way, Linda, even as we talk about pushing the president to open up the economy and the country, we must begin to push the country so much so that up to and including asking them to account for resources that have been contributed to this country and have gone into people's pockets while families are continuing to bury their loved ones out of COVID-19. I think so. As we talk about my individual responsibility, the government has a much more higher responsibility to ensure that the expectations of Kenyans in COVID-19 are met, but I don't think it is right to compare a First Amendment of the Constitution and the resources, including time and energy and monies that are being put to that, to COVID-19.
All right, and on this one, we might need to go a little bit fast so that at least we have ample time to expound on the conversation on the BBI bill. And I have seen you circling something. I thought you wanted to top up to what it is. I said, but then we'll not do that because time will not allow.
Let's go to the substance of the debate.
of what he says, This is what you circled. Blinken says the vaccines will be shared bilaterally or through COVAX, right?
Yes.
Bilaterally
or through COVAX.
So that's like almost a sure deal that there will be...
when editors write some of these texts, they are
Careful
intending to
notes.
sell.
Okay.
So their intention is to sell copies.
All right.
And in copy sales, your wording is very done in a way that must sell. So be that as it may, I think we are good.
All right, we're good. So briefly, a different story. 6,000 signed up on first day as Hitches hit digital land record. And of course, in government trying to show its level of seriousness, we again first see the inception of this process that started like 3 years ago, where we speak of Adi Sasa, and President Uhuru Kenyatta, oversaw that process of acknowledging the fact that we've gotten to a level of digitization of land processes in the country. I'd want to believe that if we do not own land, all of us here, then at least we have plans to do the same right here. Do you suppose then this comes in handy to address the discrepancies that we've witnessed, in the land sector for the longest of time, fights and battles between government and also, private parties?
Linda, last night I listened to the Cabinet Secretary Lands, Madame Farida Karone, when she was interviewed on one of the local stations. And I took that keen interest because I do understand that land is wealth in this country. And land is a motive issue. We have seen reports after reports, Ndungu Lands report, TGIC report, and the Constitution of Kenya also classifies land in categories. And therefore, the development that has come with digitization is not the first one.
Yeah.
We have had such before. But what is unique about this one is that you can now, it is foolproof. And it's coming at a time when we have seen people having different copies of the title deed. Where Linda has a copy of a title deed, Okango has the same, Kevin has the same, and Gloria has the same. So you ask yourself, who are the legitimate owners of this land?
Right.
So that in itself will now help us sort out the mess of the cartel. Because this country, we are a country of cartel, where everything is cartel. The cartel is too much. And I think now, with that is a step towards a good direction. Number two, I'm also convinced as a citizen of this country that the reason why we see people fight over land is because they use land to create wealth. And no one would want to be poor. Even the poorest, they have a piece of land. The poorest in the village, they have that is their wealth. So we must protect what we have. And in protecting it, we must adopt the latest technology. The adoption of technology in doing business must now go into in real life, where we adopt it as a way of life. I would want to encourage the government, not only in land, the other ministries that deal with the other services must also now start offering services through digital technology. The immigration department, the, what do you call them, the finance and the rest should now adopt, because Linda, you cannot beat technology. When you try beating technology, it will beat you. There are traces that will be followed in logging in. There are traces that will follow in exiting. There are traces that will follow in application and in submission. And therefore, to that extent, it becomes paramount that when you now key in on the digital technology, you cannot come and say, Linda, I did not sign this. I did not issue this title deed. It is you, and we follow it from the digital footprints. So for me, what has happened is good, but let's take it a step further by ensuring that it is working. Because garbage in, garbage out.
And day one of the processes that seek to address issues like, property searches, transfers, order of titles and of plans, and so much more, had its fair share of hitches. You have the confidence that...
Before I even go to the hitches, and my question also would be, where are they storing that data? I'm always big on local storage of that data. I want to first say that, land in Kenya is such a sensitive topic.
It is.
And that's the reason why, if you follow keenly Building Bridges Initiative and the 9 points, it never touched on 2 chapters of the Constitution. Chapter 1, which speaks of the sovereignty of the people, and Chapter 5, which actually talks about land and environment. Why? Because they knew wataamsha all the, historical injustices and all that, and because they were trying to unite the country, they actually did not touch on that. But if you look at the analysis, some of the things that Chapter 5, or where it touches on land laws and ownership and rights and stuff like that, you'll see that we really have a problem. Basically, all these reports that have been brought out, the Truth, Justice, Reconciliation report, the Ndungu report, which actually elaborates illegal distribution of public land, and if you read the Ndungu report clearly, you'll see that Kenya has actually been founded by successive acts of land grabbing. Because the people, if you go down to Coast Region and talk of chunks and masses of land which they are saying, you know, belong to their forefathers and should have been distributed well post-colonial and things like that. I'm wondering how they are going to address that, as much as we are pushing the digital, which is a positive thing, because we are trying to solve the problem of all this conmanship, of all these illegal title deeds, of all this, you know, there's always a fear when you're going to buy land, or when you're having like the succession of community land and things like that. I'd like to understand, with that digitization of this land, are we also saying that we are actually going to address historical land injustices that we have there, and how are we going to address them in terms of, now that we are digitizing what is owned and what is not owned, those that have been, you know, we have a lot of community land that people are in conflict over and things like that. So for me, I think it's a step in the right direction for sure. Here's a question that I really want to, I'm not so aware of the process, the behind the scene, the back end engineering, because digitizing and having a platform and having a sort of screen where now you as the private citizen can go and transact or check if your title deed is, you know, legal, or if it's, you know, fake or whatever. I want to understand, where is this data being stored, you know? Because Okango is talking about we can trace this, we can trace that, we can, but at the end of the day, where is the data being stored? If we're still using third parties out there, if we're still saying we are going to Amazon, we are going to, you know, the cloud out there in terms of all these third parties to store our data,
there's a problem.
There's a problem. The second thing is, if that data is being stored by proxies within the country, we still have a big problem, because I manage the data center, you know, Facebook data center in Denmark, and I know what it means to erase your data online. And I know that, you know, you can work so hard to digitize all existing title deeds, and then we can have a big show of banning all the physical, you know, and say now we have moved digital and everything. But as long as that data is not safe, as long as that data is not being handled by us directly, as long as we are not actually also following the data protection laws that were instituted, then, you know, it's we are literally just moving digitally, but the same loopholes that we had with the physical title deeds, we are going to have with the online title deeds. And the next time you host any one of these people, possibly even the PS,
I'll make sure that you call.
Kindly ask them to give us the back-end engineering process, because that is where the safety and the integrity of this digitization lies.
One of the key things that got many Kenyans a little bit scared of getting into this Huduma number talk, because they were worried about their data. How is it going to be stored? How protected it is and all that. We are moving digital, and we acknowledge the importance of technology and how we have seen it numerously, you know, in a huge and a big way, transforming the activities in the country. You have the confidence?
Linda, I do. I think one of the things that government has not done very well is how to communicate to its citizenry. And that means that therefore the confidence, the faith, the hope is either dwindled or diminished. And it's because, for instance, when you have a very historic system like this particular one called Ardhi Sasa, on day one you already have over 6,000 people signing up and their hitches. It means that we do not, as a government, and when I say we do not as a government, I'm not speaking for government. I'm just speaking as part and parcel of a contributor to government efforts. We do not think through the entire spectrum, the value chain of what we want to do, what I think Gloria calls the system. Because thinking through this particular system begins with like a policy making process, research. So what have we done in the past? Did it work? Didn't it work? What were the pros, the cons? What lessons did we learn? Did those lessons inform our policy processes? And then how did we navigate the challenges that we faced? Because land, as my good friend Okango says, is very emotive in this country. Just that the BBI probably did not mention the term land, but Gloria, when you talk about shared prosperity, there is a lot of land investment, both at national and county levels in that particular agenda item of the BBI. And that is therefore the intention of most of this.
That's a stretch, I'm just saying that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Shared prosperity would be anything.
Yeah.
It could even be shared prosperity in religion.
Well, that's why
really
he argues that therein lies.
We have a whole chapter that speaks on land.
Okay.
And that chapter they did not touch on amending anything.
Right.
So that chapter 5. And that's what I'm saying, because they knew that if they went there, we would have to address all the historical injustices on land. And I will tell you, it is because the drivers of the initiative knew that they would be somehow
it is my time. You know what I will not do next time is to refer to your good points in my statements. Otherwise, I lose my 2 minutes. So, Linda, as I was saying, it's very important for government to consider public communication as an investment in how to engage with citizens when we have this particular kind of very progressive elements. And you mentioned Huduma number. It's the same thing that Huduma number, faced, because you have a digital, a card, an ID card, you have now a digital driving license, you have an NHIF card, you have all these very many cards. But now government says we are giving you up to end of 60 days to register, but no one is taking you through the entire process and the value that it adds to me against all these other cards, because maybe I have no problem having a wallet that can accommodate 24 cards, and I'm comfortable with it that way.
Right.
So having a mechanism of communication, public communication, and how government can be able to ensure that citizens, understand what it is doing. And the agony of it, Linda, is that even at the office of the president, we have the presidential delivery unit that is supposed to be, communicating what government is doing, particularly on projects where His Excellency the President is involved, because this one was actually launched by the President himself. The second issue, so if we do that kind of communication, then we already prepare the public so that we don't have 6,000 people already moving in. Take people through a second thing, which I would call a phased out mechanism. So that you say for the first 7 days, we are going to begin with land registry. So you come with your title deed, we will log it into the system, and we'll check whether you are the bona fide legal owner of that particular piece of land. And that way people know that, okay, for the first 7 days, I'm not expected, especially if I am going to do a transfer. So it's just for checking titles and ensuring that you are the bona fide legal owner of that particular piece of land. The third issue, in my view, is a database. Therefore, to ensure that at a click of a button, you make it easy for people to, I go to Syokimau, for example, and someone tells me we have a piece of land. Can I, as I'm standing there in that particular piece of land, or as I see that advert, either on social media or on or a magazine or newspaper, can I just have a way in which I can easily check whether this has already been sold, whether it is actually for sale, or whether it is just some unscrupulous, business people who want to take advantage of my ignorance of, sale or no sale of this particular piece of land. The third issue is integrating this particular Ardhisasa to county governments. It will be very disturbing for us to see the turnout of people who want to go to land registries at the counties to check their data, and then you have the system collapsing. And you see, that is going to be a very difficult moment, because then the faith and trust of people in this particular system is already going to be dwindled. So I am hoping that government is going to move very, very fast, particularly the Ministry of Land, to integrate this particular system to its land registries at the counties, and then begin a process of public participation. Show people how to engage with the system. Show people how their feedback. For example, if I know that Fred is selling me a land which belongs to Linda or to Gloria, how do I give that feedback? And within what time frames will my feedback be acted on? Because that way then you begin to deal with the database mechanisms of backlogs of people who are owning land which is not theirs, or owners of pieces of lands which they want to sell but have no idea the sale mechanism. Last but not least, in my view, is
make
to
it brief.
Public participation again. Take people through what this means, let them understand, and then make it easy, make the system an easy to use mechanism, like an SMS. Are we going to have a code where I can be able to even send a message toll free, and I get feedback on whatever kind of queries I may have on land issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we close on that review of the papers, and the next 30 minutes or thereabout, we come and debate on the BBI bill extensively, and of course on that we loop in the conversation on the adjustments that are being made at the level of judiciary or the corridors of justice, and equally at the adjustments that we're getting within the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, because they are hugely bodies that would work in tandem with generally what it is that is playing out as to the BBI, to make sure that, well, we have a conversation that is healthy in regards to elections 2022. If at all we're going to have elections, at least from the conversations that we're having, we have question marks, and equally on the referendum, but that should be after this short break.
The country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee. Coffee, movie. Together, coffee with movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV 47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah.
Producers.
So now I manage, because telemanagement and events management, I think, was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. Out here, let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you coffee with movie, interesting, enticing guests. Out here, tunaanza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is coffee with movie. Jua unaweza enda sasa.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongee zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Enda Gotv nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo Double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Welcome to Nairobi Christian Center Bahati. We are an Assemblies of God Church under Reverend Fred Gitahi as a senior pastor. We are located at Bahati, Makadara area in Nairobi. We run a virtual church service with online services every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. as well as the children's services from 10 a.m., teens and youth services every Saturday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Nairobi Christian Center Bahati and on YouTube Nairobi Christian Center. Be blessed.
Candace, what's that?
I brought you a small bonus.
Bonus for what?
You got us 299 family dinners, 64 kisses on the cheek, 12 road trips to see grandma, 42 jokes from daddy, 49 laughs from mommy.
In over 60 years of dealing with numbers, we've learned that the numbers that matter the most to you are the ones that matter the most to us. NCBA Bank.
You know, when they say land is an emotive issue, not just in Kenya, but across Africa, and actually across, you would actually think it's a joke. You should have seen the conversation, or you should have been part of the conversation that was going on while we are on break. This on Matters Land. I'm telling you, sometimes you get worried on even touching on such subjects as, sensitive as they are, with numerous documents that have been placed on the table to address this Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, all these reports that seek to, address historical injustices, the land issues. They continue to lie there because, well, the moment you touch on them, you open a can of worms, and therefore I do not know whether we want to go that direction as we address the BBI. But first, in about 5 minutes, and let's make this as brief as possible, the adjustments happening, in judiciary, the adjustments happening in IEBC. Well, the likes of Ngati arguing that they were rigged out. Is it rigged out? Or yes, rigged out of the process and all that. But Kome we have, and President Uhuru Kenyatta has sent a name to Parliament, says, you know what, let's try and fast track this, in as much as we know we have timelines to this. Why would it be that fast?
I think we have a gap, and ordinarily when there's a gap, we are subjecting ourselves to manipulation. So I think when you read the Public Appointments Act, it requires that there's at least 28 days.
Yes.
But that is within. So you can do it even in the second day or the fourth day.
Right.
So to that extent, I think that's okay. Then the other issue at the judiciary is, I cannot even imagine any claim of rigging, because these were interviews that were done in the open, they were transparent, and I believe the women of this country are now breaking the ceiling, and women of this country should be happy for one of their own. Today, Lady Justice Martha Koome is likely to be our first female CJ, and I think it is important that we now start understanding that women are capable, suitable, and competent enough to hold public offices, but not just junior public offices, but senior public offices.
Wait until the conversation of tribe crops in.
Well, we know that that conversation of tribe was started. People are talking about regions, but the constitutional principle goes beyond regional principle. It goes beyond tribal principle. It vests heavily on the gender principle. Okay. And the Kenyans have struggled a lot in terms of achieving the 2/3 gender in both appointive and elective. Okay. This is an appointive position. I believe that this time round we are getting it. But in fact, if you ask me, Linda, I would want to see a situation where Kenyans now start thinking of having a female president. Number two, IEBC. The commission, as it is now, is constitutionally constituted. However, again, the principle of gender comes in. Again, in terms of preparing for elections and even any other big, undertaking, the commission must now be queried. We have a big task ahead of us, and that task is delimitation of electoral units. That requires that each commission shall be attached to account in terms of the delimitation. There are only 3 now. We must have the full house. Then in terms of conducting business, again we can say the maximum number is 4, but listen, or 3. But listen, it is important that we fill those positions, because the law requires that upon declaration of the vacancy, then they shall be filled up. The president has declared the vacant position, they must be filled up so that we proceed. Then there is that Kregler report that required that we move in sequence so that there is a transfer of duties, and then there is the institutional memory. We have 3. The ones that are coming in at this time will now have that memory going into the other election when the current 3 commissioners, their time is expiring after the next election. So for me, I think we must move with speed. The commission must move, have the maximum number required or the minimum number required, and put in place a secretariat with the secretary in place that we don't have. This is coming at a good time when this country is facing a lot of hurdles. Institutions are being strengthened. You cannot strengthen institutions and leave gaps. That is part of the gap that we must fill.
Gloria, briefly.
It's expected that when a woman, wins any kind of race, if it is a race or a competition, it is expected that the first thing just as the LSK chair, Eric Thoru said, branch chair, that, you know, now Kome must work extra hard to prove that she actually indeed deserved that position. I just keep wondering, when these men win whatever things they are winning, races or whatever competitions, nobody says, oh, sasa venye umeshinda, now you must show us that indeed you deserve it. It is like, okay, there it is, you got the thing, you know, run with it. So I think for me, and this is the first time ever, I think in history, that I am thinking that Okia Omtata, for me, we are not hapa hatuko pamoja, because I am surprised that he's part of the activists who are saying that, you know, there were more competent people, and, you know, Kome shouldn't have been appointed. When I see the likes of Fred Ngati are going to say that the process was rigged and I was rigged out, and, you know, I got 95%, I don't know what, I'm like, you know, I think we made the right decision, because this is a person who's supposed to believe in the institutions and the processes of the judiciary to the extent that, you know, he actually participated in the interviews, and now that he was not appointed, he actually truly believes that, you know, he was rigged out. I mean, why can't people just be like Philip Mugor and congratulate Martha Koome, you know, and just say that you got this thing fair and square? Of course, as usual, the expectations on a woman are so much higher than when the men get appointed. But having said all of that, I still think that when you raise the issue of, you know, what about the issue of tribe? What about the issue of gender, which actually was raised, that, you know, now the CJ and the acting and the deputy CJ are going to be a woman? What about, I still think that those are legitimate conversations that we should have. Because the moment you start saying that, you know, there are other things that we have to consider, and the Constitution says above and beyond all, we must go with merit only, and merit counts, and blah, 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 all kind of business justifications. Those same business justifications can be used against women when they come out, especially in the next appointments, to say, hey, we have the expanded executive, we have the president, we have the deputy president, the prime minister, 2 deputy prime minister, leader of the opposition. All of them are men from Mount Kenya. Then we come back and say, you see, even at the CJ level, you know, we went to. So it's we need to be, as women as well, we need to have an understanding that the same measures that we are expecting, that we are putting out, you know, are the same ones we should also abide by. So if someone is raising the issue of, you know, the 2/3 gender rule, and now judiciary is just women, I think it's legitimate. If someone is raising the issue of the tribe, because, you know, we are trying to actually ensure that we have regional balance, I think it's legitimate. Just because it is a woman this time who's there doesn't mean that now we must come out and fight against anyone trying to. We have to actually be very reasonable and sound-minded about these things, because come 2022, and we are having those cabinet positions, and we are having those, the same argument will be used against women. Yes.
Kevin, make it brief, because we don't have time and we have to point out this BBI matter.
You see, for me, I ask myself, what is the issue? This is a CJ nominee. The name has already been submitted to His Excellency the President, awaiting parliamentary vetting and ultimately appointment. In fact, the judiciary has been going through a lot of reforms in the past few years, I think since 2016. And because we had expected, for instance, that the JSC would give 3 names to the president, so that then he has a leeway. But because of all these reforms, you only give me 1 envelope that has 1 name, and then ultimately, and the process, in my view, has been very transparent, accountable, and very open. If people, citizens, had petitions, things against the people who boldly, because out of the 51 million, you rise up and you say, I'm a good advocate, I'm a good judge, I want to go in and submit myself for this very difficult process. I think that's a very bold move. And so if and people who had issues were given the opportunity to send emails, write letters, and most of those issues that people had, in my view, were actually read openly to the candidates, and they were told, hey, by the way, you are a research assistant and you did work with so and so and you didn't pay. And the person has been asking you for hii pesa yake na unamzimia simu. What do you have to say about your integrity? And I think those were issues which were canvassed openly, and so in my view, the concern should be what is on the in table, the in tray. you are expected to discharge certain responsibilities. And at the top of it, I think for me is administration of justice. Delay of cases, the backlog of cases that Kenyans expect that the Chief Justice can be able to, call on people, pick your phone call and say, hey, I am checking on my database and you have more than this number of cases have been lying there for 18 years. What is happening? You have the next 3 months to discharge and dispense all these issues. Issues about working with the, intergovernmental relationships between executive, legislature, and also the judiciary. We have a case in point where 41, now -1 judges have never been sworn into office. Those are issues which I think affect administration of justice, because then they contribute to some of the challenges that Kenyans are asking for the intervention of the Chief Justice. Relationships between the executive and the judiciary. I think we had a very difficult, turbulent moment between Mheshimiwa Maraga and the executive, and we saw a lot of revisiting taking place. We expect that now that we have a substantive nominee who we hope that Parliament will be able to give a green light to be able to be the person sitting at the apex of the judiciary, can then ensure that some of those gaps and challenges are dealt with. Linda, you and I know that all over the world, the female gender is getting very progressive. In Kosovo, we have a lady president. In New Zealand, we have a lady, actually the Kosovo lady is under 35, very progressive, and I think is a good story to speak about. In New Zealand, we have a female prime minister. Closer home, in Tanzania, the United Republic, we have a female president. I think these are things which speak to the power that is coming out of women, and there is therefore no reason, in my view, why we should not imagine that Kenya having the first historical female Chief Justice is going to be an issue for us to be talking about, whether she'll perform, pull up your socks, do this and that. We have legislations and we have very clear mechanisms that spell out how these offices are supposed to be run, whether you are a female or you are a male. And lastly, on the issue of tribe, I think the only point where this can be very antagonistic is when you have a petition, a presidential petition at the Supreme Court, because that therefore then presents the judgment, attitude, and character of a Chief Justice. How will you be able to bring out a judgment that will be very acceptable if, for example, you are a Chief Justice who comes from a region or a place where the contenders, are expected to either have participated in your being a Chief Justice or are actually part and parcel of the case for which then has been brought before you. So issues about conflict of interest. I think that for me should be how then we aim to strengthen the judiciary as opposed to talking about whether we have a female Chief Justice or not.
Okay, well, we close on that one. But still, of course, links hugely as to the BBI conversation. And we have about a maximum of 14 minutes to ponder, and this is quite much time if we are to balance it well. And Fred, coming to you at the point where we left it, as a proponent, you believe in this document. You believe it has what it takes, to have a proper conversation, on all levels as constitutionally dictated. Why then should we witness, or we should hear allegations of intimidation of individuals that are supposed to debate on this particular document, so that we either see it sail through or not, or coercion?
I haven't heard of any intimidation.
Oh yeah?
I haven't heard of any, and if there's any, then it's not about BBI. Number two, I just want to put
it's actually not about BBI, at least from what it is. That
exactly. So thank you for making that clear, because it's not. It has never been. There are these people who go and abduct themselves and then start making claims all over. We saw it during the revenue allocation. We are seeing it now. But I want to believe that even the person who was making those claims yesterday came out and said the issue. So today, we'll hear another story. But that's not even the concern of Kenyans today. The concern of Kenyans today is, what is the fact around this bill? I have heard people talk about allegation of various versions. And the word remains allegation because it's not there. And I want to explain to you. Last week, in some of my articles in the dailies, I said it, and I said this. And that's the fact. Linda, there's no chance on earth that the county assemblies debated various versions of the bill. Why? Because this bill comes from the promoter. Then it lands in the hands of the independent body called IEBC. the IEBC must submit that bill to the 47 county assemblies. Now, when the 47 county assemblies make a decision of the bill, the Constitution Article 257 says a copy of the bill with a certificate of approval shall be submitted back to the bicameral house, a copy of the bill.
But there are two different ones. That one at least is confirmed.
Then, Linda, again, let me explain to you.
Okay.
This bill is only one bill. I have seen opponents trying to manufacture propaganda. You know, when you are in politics, it's about competition. And propaganda is one of the tools in politics. They have perfected it. There's one gentleman in this country who started that propaganda on his Facebook page. And then, before I knew it, I saw the media reporting on the same.
But Fred,
wait. And I want to explain, there's no fact.
We have parliament
the media,
reporters there.
No.
They come with reports.
Let me tell you,
Fred,
the media have also failed Kenyans. When you say that
the fact in parliament, when the session is clear in black and white,
when you say that there are versions and you fail to produce the versions to your viewers and readers, then you are a liar. The only issue
when they
that we have
engaged
seen
Patricia
in this,
Mbote to give advisory on this, and
Patricia
she confirms that there are some
did
changes.
not confirm that. I've read the report.
Patricia Mbote
did not confirm that BBI had got 13-6 bills.
Oh, no, 13.
But
say it was different at the level of Senate, and that one that was
now
the National
let's
Assembly.
go to the substance of the matter. What is the difference? The only time you can actually say that a bill is different if there are fundamental and material differences. Assuming today a bill that was submitted from the County Assembly of Meru, for example, had a creation of the position of Prime Minister who is elected by the people, and the one that was submitted from Home of Untold County, where I come from, a creation of a Prime Minister that is nominated by the President, then those are fundamental differences.
Hold it right there. Fred, hold it right there.
Different.
You know, off the cuffs, we were having this conversation on how, you know, legal experts will come with the Constitution and they're trying to quote and open and, you know,
Linda,
words and everything. Fred is the very same person who told us that it is always important to go back and quote and say it is written. Let's allow Gloria come in. Yes. You know, we don't have time, honestly.
I want to. I'm glad that Okango is passionate about defending the Building Bridges initiative.
No, I'm defending Kenyans because of the fact.
And some of us, we are passionate about speaking facts and about actually defending the Constitution, the actual Constitution. Now, let me sound like these lawyers. Article 257 of that same Constitution that they keep quoting does not allow Parliament to consider 3, 4, 5 different versions of a bill.
Speaks of one.
Yeah? And, you know, Okango has gone through the process of referendum. He understands, and while he's saying that this is the process, we go to IEBC, he understands the initiators of that referendum, they take an original copy to IEBC. The same original copy which the 1 million Kenyans actually put their signatures. IEBC at that point is supposed to go to the government printers and replicate that copy. Yeah?
No, that's not true.
Now,
it's not IBC to go to the government printer. That's not true.
No. I mean,
who is to go to the government printer?
I'll explain.
No.
You know, we don't have the luxury of time.
That is, you know me, I'm actually stating the process here.
Right.
That is the process. You go to IEBC, your 1 million signatures against the draft bill that is there.
All right, let's read the Constitution.
And the question that us Kenyans are wondering, us who do not know how to quote all these articles of the Constitution, is when the chair of IEBC comes out and says, hey, listen, me, I did not make any copies. Me, I received these copies from the drivers of the initiative, and my work was to do what? To distribute. Yes, that is what he said. And we have no reason not to believe him. Because against what? You know, he's talking about what happened. I got the copies and I went and distributed them. Now, as far as we are concerned, as private citizens who do not know how to quote the Constitution, 51 copies were made as far as we are concerned. 47 that went to the county assembly, 1 that went to the National Assembly, another one to the Senate, and 1 that went to Raila Odinga, as far as we are concerned. Now, all these issues of some have typos, some have articles that don't exist that have been quoted, which by now Okango and other people are saying those are minor errors, they can go to the Attorney General and be corrected. But if you're quoting an article that does not exist in the Constitution, it is not a minor error. If you're quoting the wrong article while trying to reference an amendment that you're making, it is not a minor error, because as much as you think it does not have a fundamental difference, what is actually happening is you are not following the due process of amending the constitution. And that is what we are fighting for, us people out here. We are saying, we have no problem with your expansion of the executive. We have no problem with all these things you are trying to bring to a referendum. We are just saying, follow the due process. And if at this point you are telling us, and we know because it is not alleged, we have seen members of county assemblies coming out and saying, this is the version they have, that is the version they had. If you're telling us that only 11 county assemblies passed the correct bill, that is a fact that we are sitting here and saying, then what happens?
Okay,
what happens
Kevin,
to the threshold of the 24?
This document or this bill risks, a lot of, or is vulnerable to a possibility of so much litigation, court battles for that matter as it stands. What do you make of what it is that is going on here?
The BBI will overcome that.
Oh.
It will overcome that because remember that even up to until the time when now the JLAC is coming up with its report, there have been court cases against the BBI. In fact, there have also been initiatives saying, oh, tekeleza katiba, and they have raised concerns. The BBI process is a train that already left the station, and the storms that were
It will overcome on what basis?
Just
the fact that it is being pushed by the heavies and,
No, they will find a loophole. They will take it to the edges. It will overcome. He's right.
How it will overcome is through legal advisory. And
legal
the second,
loopholes.
and I'm talking about advisory, not loopholes. The second issue is how it will overcome is at the people's referendum, when the people actually have time and the opportunity to cast a yes vote for this particular issue. Do you know why, Linda? Because the BBI, outside the contentious political issues, has very many progressive programs that if we only spend time to talk about them, as opposed to what is dicey and sweeter to the political class, as opposed to what the citizens think is in for them and value adding from the BBI, which we are not giving time. When that time comes for the citizens now to be given the opportunity to vote, that is how the BBI process is going to overcome this. Remember that His Excellency the President and his brother, the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the promoters, have not talked about all these things that are happening. But it is not that they are not seeing and watching and observing. They are. The point of concern is allow people to ventilate, because that is the process that the Constitution has set in place. And you can see the tonations, narrations that Jubilee is taking, given the context. You can see the tonations, the narrations that ODM is also taking, including One Kenya Alliance, ANC. Yesterday, we had an opportunity to engage with members, and out of the number of them who are in that kind of platform we were at, they said they are going to support this issue despite the fact that they are concerned. And that is because they have gone beyond, they have risen above the issues of politics, which is really, in fact, in this issue, it is just about the 70 new constituencies.
Okay.
If you move out of that and begin to talk about the incubation centers that is going to be put down there to ensure that young people have jobs.
Which don't need to go to a referendum.
All right, hold it right there.
But
we only have 4 minutes, and I want Fred to come in.
It is a proposal that is actually on the table for conversation, despite the fact that what we are spending time on is the amendment, which is what is being taken to the referendum.
Fred is a specialist on that one. Of
and Linda, the issue of the 70
I'll give you 1 minute maximum.
The issue of the 70 constituencies is not an issue that we should take lightly, because who actually came up with that, the need of those 70? I come from Kisii County, from Bobasi constituency, which is literally one of the constituencies that should have been considered to be split into two. But we didn't make it there. So we are wondering who actually went, if you're saying this is a popular initiative, that people actually participated in drafting and saying this is what we want. For sure, Kisii, we are all in agreement that Bobasi needs to be split.
Right.
So that issue should not be taken lightly. The fact that someone just sat down and said we are going to give Mount Kenya how many constituencies and this one and this one.